Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to Rant and Chill. On this channel, I like to rant and I like to chill. Here, I'm going to be chilling. Going to be reacting to LOVEBITES Judgement Day, an ADK album review. Kind of a meta reaction, a kind of an album review. Let's go put it on the screen. If you like this sort of thing, make sure you press the like button, share, and subscribe. And anything I say in this commentary, nothing negative towards this channel, okay? I understand they may have their opinion about the songs they're about to get into, and that's totally fine. 100% there. 100%. Anyway, let's go and play this.
Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the ADK channel, and today we are checking out or doing the review of the album Judgement Day by LOVEBITES,
Cool.
Japanese band, and the album comes out
22nd of February on Victor.
22nd of February.
I got mine pre-ordered.
JPG Records Limited.
Yeah, it's about a
Yeah,
week's
yours
time
pre-ordered?
when we're doing this actual review. So we'll kick it off around the table. I'm going to kick off to start with about my thoughts of the album. So we'd obviously done Judgement Day as a single. We was a
Great
big fan
song.
of the actual song as far as the track. The music video was very interesting, did some real interesting stuff. Didn't quite get the story elements of it when we did the video, but it was a very interesting video. The album kicks off with a great power metal opener.
I did a breakdown of that song Judgment Day, the meaning in the music video. If you want to check it out, of course I'm going to plug it. Of course I'm going to plug it here. This channel is pretty much LOVEBITES super fan. How I didn't get early access to this album, I do not know. I'm like LOVEBITES super fan over here, and I was also kind of having Victor Entertainment's back. Though I started like, oh, they're not doing much for the ladies, but then I learned a little bit more, and I was like, well, maybe they're doing something. I'm just saying, I am green with envy over here, guilty as charged. Let's play.
This is, for me, this is a great album in the sense of where the fans have told us that they don't just do power metal, and this album does show that. And I did get a little bit concerned going into the album by the time we were at sort of track 3, because I just had 3 songs of power metal, and power metal is probably
3 songs of power metal. Hey, that's already sounded good in my book. I mean, LOVEBITES is 3 essential ingredients for most of their songs: speed, thrash, and power metal. Which power metal itself, a lot of contains thrash elements in it. It's just thrash elements with a lot of speed and like this larger than life, epic, cinematic, like sound to it, like with keyboards and stuff. Okay, anyway.
probably one of my least favorite styles of metal.
Okay, and I understand where he's coming from. He's saying power metal is his least favorite. So that tells me that anything he has to say that's negative about this album is actually going to be a positive in my book. And that's just different opinions, and that's fine.
Great for like 1 or 2 tracks over a course of a few hours, but a whole album power metal feels very, very samey to me. So I was getting a bit concerned on the first 3. So we had We Are the Resurrection, great power metal opener, very grand, very theatrical.
I expect that.
Then
Great.
launches into a bit more of a classic thrash style, brutally fast track, very, very, very fast. Great.
If he calls We Are the Resurrection grand, I really want to hear what that sounds like.
Sections, and again solos. Rather than take it track by track, I have to say solos on this album were amazing. They were phenomenal. The solos, I didn't find a bad solo.
Midori Miyoko, our shredding queens, man. I bet the twin guitar solos were fantastic too, phenomenal.
Judgment Day, great track we talked about before. Spirit Lives On, very classic power metal, so it's not very modern power metal. It was more of a kind of taken back in stylization. But again, I think my worry at this point was getting into this track 3. I was starting to lose stamina as a listener because I was just getting beaten over the head with this power metal fastness. So I was really glad when the 4th track kicked in, Wicked Witch. Loved the intro, kind of new wave of British heavy metal, Gallop.
Oh wow, okay. Wicked Witch was one I was very curious about too. I expressed that one in was it something about Shoot Down, right? So new wave British heavy metal sort of sound, kind of Iron Maiden sound. Hey, you know what? That's cool. I wonder if it compares to like Hammer of Wrath.
Kicked in Wicked Witch. Loved
Thunder
the intro,
Vengeance.
kind of new wave of British heavy metal, Gallop. So I was getting this kind of old Iron Maiden kind of,
Sweet.
which I loved.
Pretty
It
much,
made
wasn't
it
it?
straight away made
Hey, that sounds great to me.
me go, wait, thank God for that. I've got something different than power metal. And I thought they did it great. It actually, there was a keyboard chord change in it, which actually reminded me of Journey's Separate
Mal.
Ways.
Mal's going to be all over the place in this album. He really is. He really is. He really is the sixth member of the band. Okay, all right.
So if you ever unsure of what I'm talking about there, just check out the song Separate Ways. It's not specifically how it's played. It's just the chords are exactly the same and they're spaced exactly the same distance apart.
Doesn't sound bad.
Great, nice vocal layering on that particular track. I really liked how the vocals were layered up, and the dual guitar parts were really nice on the track. Stand and Deliver had an amazing dirty bass intro.
That's the song. Stand and Deliver. Stand and Deliver. Okay, dirty bass, huh? I like a dirty bass intro. This is sounding really good.
On the track, Stand and Deliver had an amazing dirty bass intro. I love the sound of the bass on that. That was just dirty, gritty, real intense drum fills, going into this crazy pick
I wonder if it's kind of like Scream for Me, that sort of bass intro.
slides, and then it kicks off. Gang vocals, great hard metal riffs.
All right, cool.
Kind of reminded me of Hardwired to Self-Destruct era Metallica.
Oh, okay.
That was the kind of vibe I was getting from that track. So great solo, just a classic metal solo on that one. Victim of Time, back to power metal, and actually having had 2 tracks that were not power metal, I was actually ready for that track now. I was actually able to take that one on board and
a
enjoy
slight
it.
change up. Okay.
And it didn't feel overly long, which is sometimes can happen with power metal tracks. And then really we've got a bit more new wave of British heavy metal on the tracks. Before I get to my favourite track, we'll talk about the couple of the last ones. Dissonance, kind of Avenged Sevenfold style track. Again, really liked it.
Avenged Sevenfold. I could kind of see that with Dissonance. I can.
Soldier Stand Solitary had the best intro of any track on the album for me. I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, really? And that's the last song, right? It has the best intro? Oh, man, I got to hear that.
Reminded me of Iron Maiden for some reason again. So I've had a couple of Iron Maiden references in here, which is great. But my favourite track on the album was My Orion.
You hear that, guys? A lot of y'all were worried that when Miho leaves, there goes that influence. There goes the Iron Maiden sort of influence there. I vaguely remember some people saying that. I think some people were also concerned about the thrash elements too. It sounds like it's more power metal and British new wave heavy metal, which honestly I'm not surprised by.
Kind of reminded hard rock, 80s metal. Absolutely. I just put this one word. Loved it. Best solos on the album.
Best chorus as well on the
Best
album.
choruses. I mean, there are things on the album I would change. Personally, that's down to my preference. There's certain things. I still find the vocals a little bit harder for me. They're just not really my sort of style of vocal.
Oh.
But I do know that a lot of people like the vocals on the
Well, it's
album.
gonna be
But for
agree to
me,
disagree,
guitar
you know?
work
That's
was
their opinion,
phenomenal.
that's fine.
Phenomenal. Drums and guitars, everything just sounded great on the album. But there are a little bit too many power metal songs for me. But it was a good balance overall.
But someone who's a big fan of Love Bites probably digs power metal because that's kind of what they play majority of the time is power metal. I mean, there's thrash elements too and all that, but so it sounds really good. It's sounding really great to me.
Maybe if they'd 3 power metal songs straight on the off, maybe if they'd broken that up would have helped it out. But I did really enjoy the album. Kirk?
There are two faces to this band, really, aren't there? 2 sides. When you listen to the opening title track with that military drum snare and really aggressive guitars, and they've got a real venomous hiss to them. That is basically a technical thrash band.
Yeah.
And what I found with this album is it quickly establishes a pattern where on alternate songs you'll get one where they're going for the real high speed mid-80s thrash metal. For example, you know the song that you said reminded you of Metallica's Hardwired to Self-Destruct, Stand and Delivered. I've written down here, reminds me of Dystopia, Megadeth's 2016 album.
Awesome. All right. So there is a thrash song that's like kind of Megadeth-like. That's great. I love that.
From the same
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we obviously had a similar opinion of that, and the drummer is fantastic in this band. Absolutely
Haruna.
magnificent. The energy, like when you listen to track number
She's a weapon of mass destruction behind that drum kit. She's so small, though.
one, you're like, this is outstanding.
Small and deadly.
But even then, you're thinking, can I listen to 10 songs like this all at the same pace?
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
they're just they are a bit one-dimensional in the end, because they're just trying to use that up-tempo drama
Sounds good to
for
me.
all 10 songs. I disagree with you, Dave. I don't think they deviated at all from style. The one
It sounds good to me. I like old school Metallica for one reason, thrash. And when they deviate, it's like, why? I like Megadeth because of one reason, thrash. When it deviates, I'm like, why? Come on, man. But, you know, agree, disagree. That's fine.
one song that we all like, Judgment Day,
Sounds good to me.
experiments with a prog metal interplay of finger tapping bass and down-tuned palm muting. But it needs more of that. The heavy songs I really enjoy. Dissonance, you just said, Avenged Sevenfold. That
Yeah.
reminds me of the Anthrax song Gung Ho from their 1985 album Spreading the Disease. Fantastic. I actually wrote down as well, if only Megadeth could still capture this type of energy, this type of sound.
Megadeth. He referenced Anthrax and then said Megadeth. Was that? That was I think he misspoke.
There are some really innocuous songs on here, though, that are just fillers. The ones to me, Wicked Witch, Victim of Time.
Wicked Witch is a good title. That sounds really good. Wicked Witch.
Lost in the Garden. These are, look at the pattern of this that I'm noticing. Track 4, track 6.
Wait. Lost in the Garden is not a ballad? There's not a single ballad on this album? Is that what I'm getting? Ooh. Still listenable. Still good. Still good Love Bites album, sounds like. Sounds promising. But not a ballad. No ballad. You know, I thought Lost in the Garden was going to be a ballad. I said that, didn't I? You think with a name like that, it's going to be a ballad. But wrong there for me, huh?
Track 8. And in between, they've got these stunning thrash metal songs.
Okay.
But those songs are forgettable. And there's a real problem that this band encounter. I don't hear too many memorable choruses. Power metal is all about memorable choruses. That's why My Orion stands out so much, and especially track number 1. Soldier stands solitarily. I quite enjoyed that. Yeah. Again, great songwriting here. The structures are quite easy to understand, aren't they, after 3 or 4 songs? But another problem with this album, the average song length on this album is over 5 minutes.
What's wrong with that? Long songs are great, especially when you have lots of shredding guitars, and I bet you every song has at least 3 solos. You got one from Midori, one from Miyako, and then a twin guitar solo. Okay? But you know why they do that? Because they can. Because they're talented. Because they can put that in there. And that's what the fans want.
Absolutely unnecessary. There's no way that Wicked Witch needs to be 5 minutes and 34 seconds. And it's just because they're putting in an extra minute of shredding guitar solos. Yeah, I enjoy.
Why would I complain about that? An extra minute of shredding guitar solos. That's exactly what I want. You know, sometimes a critique could ask, you know, someone criticizing and be like, you know, I don't really like this. It's just, you know, that sounds great to me, you know. What you didn't like in it sounds like something I would like in it.
Enjoy them in the first 5 tracks. And towards the end, I'm not even listening. It's like they've run out of ideas. Doesn't matter how good the musicianship is. If you are just putting guitar solo for no reason, then you just
for no reason.
I'm just going to lose interest.
And every song cut is 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes throughout. It's almost you.
I mean, I've never heard a Love Bites fan complain about the guitar solos or the amount of guitar solos in any song. I mean, just about every Love Bites song has a guitar solo, 2 at least, right? I mean, is there a Love Bites song that does not have a guitar solo? Awakening does not count. Anyway,
I'm wondering if they're thinking in the sense of, with this album, they're going, well, we're going to pick 3 songs off this album that will be played live. So we need to have all of our songs. There's no point putting the 3-minute one because that won't be what we want to do live. We want to have like the shredding solos, etc. So when we mix it in with the rest of the songs, we want to have
Have they seen them live? At least live videos, because they do the shredding guitar solos in like in all their songs. So, and it's great stuff.
a choice. So I'm just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I understand what you were saying, because when I first saw 11 tracks, I'm like, okay, 11 tracks, and then I saw the length of the album. I'm like, bloody hell, okay.
Yeah, same here. I texted you, didn't I? Said
Quite a lot.
57 minutes for a power metal band. I mean, don't get...
That's 57 minutes for a power metal band. I think that's on par, right? I mean, power metal. I mean, 57 minutes for for Love Bites album sounds about right. Sounds about what I'm hearing them say is they don't like it because it's too long. I'm like, hey, that is good news for me. I like it long. Don't take that out of context.
Don't get me wrong, there's that song Dissonance, I'll come back to it, reminds me of Anthrax. Slayer fans will appreciate that song.
Oh yeah,
I even wrote almost Slayer at parts.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Dissonance. Slayer. I get the Slayer reference from Dissonance there.
But these they really do know the thrash metal, and let's be honest, they can play their instruments probably better than any of the big four, can't they? As well?
Here's a question.
100%. 100%. The big four cannot hold a candle. Cannot shred the guitar as much as they can. That's for sure. That's only because Megadeth. It's only because Dave Mustaine is getting old. He can still shred. I'm just saying, he's not in his prime. That. Okay, I'm just gonna continue. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to trigger anyone.
Mention that there what the I guess diversity in the actual album, so there wasn't enough variance. Because I suppose if you were a thrash band or a power metal band, there are certain things in tracks on the album that you would have had a breakup. So I've noticed there was no kind of slow ballady track or a power ballad or anything like that which would have broken the album up, which I don't know if they've done it.
That is kind of surprising. No power ballad.
On previous albums they've ever done something like that, but that's
Oh,
kind
they
of a
have.
staple of the slowed down track which is used to break an album up almost.
Yeah, I agree. Do you know, this is an album that needed a ballad, isn't it?
It needed something, and
It really did. Because it's
like
just...
I suppose they thought that they were on hiatus for a little bit. They need to come out swinging hard and heavy. Okay?
emotional, something to take you on that emotional journey.
Yeah, that would probably demonstrate the vocals of Asami even better, because those thrash songs that are aggressive, a voice is never going to be able to match
the
that
music they're
intensity,
talking
is it?
about in the
That's a
background.
real problem. The musician
You can hear it. I have my music playing over it just a little bit for copyright reasons. But yeah, you can hear it.
relationship though is exquisite, and there are some real highlights on here, but there are some flaws as well, and I think they are guilty of being one-dimensional, just going for that up-tempo beat on every song. It's like when you get a band and they're almost trying to be
Hey, I mean, they have a style, and it's good for them. They like it. The fans love it.
epic for the sake of it. They're trying to be dramatic for the sake of it. I know people are going to criticize me for that. We're talking about
Oh, no. And let me make sure this is clear. No hard feelings towards reviewers. You know, they're just voicing their criticisms. You know, they're actually being kind of fair for people who, the first guy, he says he doesn't even like power metal. So he's being kind of fair to power metal. I mean, that's pretty fair. I'll say. At least he's trying to, you know, consider that some people may like it and may enjoy it. Keep in mind what I said earlier. Their critiques, to me, sound like positive things. It's like, oh, okay, more reason to be excited about this album. Okay.
metal and heavy metal and the theatrics of it. But yeah, it's just too long, this album, wasn't it? It almost defeated me. If they were
Like I would say, if they're trying to talk me out of getting this album, they're actually talking me into it. Okay.
at least 5 really impressive compositions on this album, which there are, then I'd be a lot more negative.
Yeah. Okay. Andy, what's your thoughts?
I have a bad feeling about this guy. No
I'd
hard
like
feelings,
to
though.
address first of all a comment that I think came from our review of the last video. You know, we're not a hit squad brought together by you, Dave, to shoot down any female fronted Japanese metal bands. You know.
Oh, Max Maniac. Yes.
Yeah. Hello, Matt.
Maxi boy.
Good to have you on board. Yeah, I mean, I was sort of looking at this album in trepidation because I wasn't expecting much from what we've seen before, and you know we've been slated in the comments, especially me. But there was some real highlights in here for me. There were some passages that I enjoyed. I mean, the opening track I think was probably my favourite.
He wasn't looking forward to it. How did they get an early access? What do I have to do to get early access to these albums? Do I need to submit something to these, to the record companies? Let them know, hey, man, I review albums. I do reactions. I mean, come on, man. I'll be your hype man. If I had early access to this album, I'd be hyping it up. It would be. Now, of course, it would be biased. It would be 100% biased. Okay, that's for sure. Okay, it would be like a 95, 98. I'll be like 98% good. You know, it'd be heavily biased, is what I'm saying.
Okay. The opening riff is really heavy and technical and quite fast in tempo. So I really like that. And again, there's a different riff that closes it. But what I think happened in this song and throughout, Kirk, you'll confirm the exact terminology, but the sort of tremolo effect that sort of litters this album, I don't like that personally. Spoils it a little bit. That last riff is spoiled by the sort of that kind of action going on. Dave, you said that the opening 3 songs were all power metal and you get a bit overwhelmed. I've noted down that Judgment Day was sort of keyboard led and reminded me of Nightwish. I don't know if either of you agree with that.
Like a technical thrash version of Nightwish.
Yeah. I kind of
like
sort of
that.
said, I think in my notes I've here, power thrash is how I've kind of done it, because
Yeah. But
Hey, power thrash is actually a good way to describe Love Bites. That's not a bad way to describe Love Bites. Power thrash. You know what? I'm going to borrow that from them. Power thrash.
I think that sort of keyboard led as a track and was kind of unique throughout. It's on its own from that one. I mean, the vocals on that track and also on Lost in the Garden, I actually quite like because she actually reins it in a bit. She's not trying to hit those high notes at the very top of
I love it when Asami hits those high notes.
her range, which is why, in my opinion, she sounds strained and struggling.
Strained and
through much
struggling.
of this album. But there are, there are some vocal passages in certain songs that I think are really good when she sort of lowers it down a bit and sort of sits in the middle of her range. Wicked Witch, you mentioned the Iron Maiden reference. I thought it sounded very much like the Trooper.
yeah.
Stand and Deliver. I've got sort of, you mentioned Metallica. I'm not familiar with that particular album, but I've got sort of Bay Area thrash. That's what that particular song reminded me of. And obviously there's power metal.
Once again, sounds pretty good. Asami reaching those high notes. That's iconic for Asami. Like Holy War, Glory, Glory to the World. I mean, just name a song where she reaches high notes. It's quite a bit. It's many songs.
Throughout. But yeah, there's some songs I will go back to on this album. I'm not going to
Well, that's cool.
lie and say I'm a huge fan of it, but it certainly opened my eyes or opened my ears to this band in a more sort of fair approach. Whereas
that sounds good.
I think previously with reactions, I think this is the first album we had reviewed for this band. We've had a few reaction videos, and I've just been taken aback a little bit. But having time, to listen to this and analyse it on 3 occasions, there's certainly some positives I can take from it and some tracks I'll go back to.
I mean, I think I would say from all 3 of us, we can certainly agree that there is an immense talent within this particular band.
And that's cool. They recognize the talent there, even though they may not like all the tracks here, and that's perfectly fine. They may not like certain songs, certain elements, maybe certain the vocal range and all that. They do recognize the talent.
Whether musically it's the right sort of music that we would listen to, considering our backgrounds of what we listen to, from whether it's death, whether it's doom, whether it's prog rock, prog metal. The one thing that we don't talk about that we listen to as a general thing has been power metal. Power metal is one of the things that none of us have actually said that it's our kind of our main thing. We are all aware of power metal, but not something that we listen to on a regular basis. So it's
Imagine not really being a fan of like new metal and doing a review of a Korn album, an old school Korn album. I don't know what the new stuff is. Like that stuff is hogwash, but okay, that'd be difficult to do in a fair and balanced way. So these gentlemen are being fair from their perspective. And, you know, actually, no. They're being fair from my perspective. What am I saying here? They're being fair. You may not like it. You may disagree, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said, if you disagree with the criticism, or if the criticisms sound like something that's actually a good thing for you, then, hey, that's great. That's what's going to happen here. I mean, it's kind of like when I read a review for a book or for a movie, and they say it's too gory. Be like, well, that sounds like a good thing for me. That's something that I like. Or it's too extreme. Well, that's something that I like too. You know? There have been times where I've been persuaded to buy something because of negative reviews. What about you? Right? Come on.
It's a little bit more challenging from that point. I was just having to think about what you said, Andy, about vocals, and I'm just wondering whether or not one of the things that kind of, not specifically with Love Bites, but although it is one of the things that she does, vocalists that use or overuse vibrato.
Oh.
So whenever they go for that big high
Vibrato. Do they know about Unlucky Morpheus? They may not like Unlucky Morpheus.
notes and stuff, they have just constantly got to use that vibrato.
Something tells me they were definitely not like Unlucky Morpheus did.
Vibrato rather than holding that note clean.
She can hold it. She can hold it when she needs to.
That bugs me when a singer does that too often. I think there's times for vibrato, but when they use it all the time, every time they go to a high call, because when you talk about sort of singers who can hit the big notes, Tarja, Floor, and they don't use vibrato when they hit those big notes. They do occasionally, but they will use it for effect, not for every time they go up. And I'm just wondering if that might be also one of the reasons when we pick it, because we hear it as a wavering in the vocal tone. And some people do it as planned, and some people...
What do you guys think? You guys, does the vibrato and Love Bites bother you? It's not something new. What he's offering critique on isn't something would be new in this album that you haven't heard in Love Bites before. So, I like it. Sounds good to me.
It just happens every time, and it's unplanned vibrato because they're trying to hold that note, and it's them forcing more power through to keep forcing it back up. I don't know what the case is in this case, but that's the thing. When every time I think about with the Love Bites songs, when I'm hearing her sing, is there's just remembers vibrato just constantly being there, and I'm wondering if that's something could be one of the elements that puts us off a little bit.
That's
overall, sorry.
I was just saying, it's not a sort of analysis I've heard before, but that's a technique you think where you can hit a high note, but you haven't got the ability to sort of sustain it or tick in the box as to that's what this song requires.
I've heard it as from people do it where you hear them get to that note, but they're struggling. So what they do is it starts to dip back down, so they push more volume, and so they get this vibrato sound, which isn't actually planned vibrato, controlled.
Well, being that Asami can do that and also keep the note at the same time and various times, depending on what's needed for a song and what she wants to do, I mean, it tells me that it's intentional. She's wanting to do that.
Vibrato. I'm not saying that the singer of Love Bites is doing uncontrolled vibrato. If she's doing it, I'm sure it's planned, but it's just what we're explaining here. But it's whether or not that might be one of the things we're hearing that might put us off a little bit about the amount of vibrato being used. But I know a lot of vocal coaches absolutely love her vocal style, so that's fine. Obviously, she's a good singer. We need to score this then. So we score...
Here we go, gentlemen. Here's the score. Put down your pitchforks. Remember, we're respectable gentlemen here, okay?
Our album's out of 4 categories. It's either a bin it, which means we hated the album, it was awful, get rid of it. It's not even worth producing. A trade it, which means it's a good album, but it's just not for us, and we want to give it to someone who'd really enjoy it. A stream it, because there's enough on the album for us to want to check it out again, but potentially not buy it. And of course, the final scoring is a buy it, because we absolutely love the album and we want to own it. Let's kick it off alphabetically. Over to Andy. What's your score?
If I had a physical copy of this, I would trade it for something that I would like. But
that's fair. You can trade it to me.
There's some tracks I would stream. So
I would put that as a trade it then, the way you've explained that.
Okay, so you want to trade it. For me, it's a stream it. There is enough on there that I would go out and buy or stream or use. There's enough tracks. It was a close one for me. It was effectively just 50% of the album.
Remember, he liked 50% of it, and he's coming from he doesn't really like power metal that much. So if you really like power metal, or you like power thrash, if you like the Love Bites power thrash style, you're gonna like this album. Okay, that's what it sounds like to me.
That I enjoyed and liked, and normally it's 50% or above is a buy it for me, but I think for me with the stylization it's a stream it. There's enough tracks on there that I would definitely go back, and I can see myself definitely like Wicked Witch, Stand and Deliver, My Orion and Soldier Stand Solitary will be stuff that I will stream on a future basis, or actually we won't because we actually got the album, so we've actually got it, so I don't need to, but
Lucky,
it's the sort of thing that I
lucky bastards.
would do. Kirk, yourself?
Yeah, like Andy, I'm torn, but when I look at the notes I made for this album, it has an aggregate score of almost 7 out of 10, so that's got to be a stream it. You know, that shows that I've enjoyed.
Hey, he's objective. He's objective. 7 out of 10 based on the scoring method, whatever that is. 7 out of 10 stream it. Got 2 stream it, 1 trade it for people that aren't really fond of power thrash. So if you're fond of power thrash or the Love Bites sound, the Love Bites style, it sounds like you're really going to enjoy this album. Sounds like Love Bites fans are really going to enjoy this album. Okay.
More than half of this album. Yeah, I wouldn't buy it, but the musicianship is excellent,
and I respect these gentlemen for being honest about what they from their perspective, their backgrounds. I hope anything I said in the commentary wasn't taken personally. I don't think I said anything personally about them or anything. I think it was a pretty decent review. A very no, it's a good review. It's an honest review. They're being honest about it, right? You might say they're being, what? In a way, I would say they're probably being maybe nice, but at the same time, I think they're being really honest about it. Okay. So, anyway, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if from everything you've heard of what they've said, especially the criticisms, if you're looking, if your anticipation for this album has increased any. Let me know. Let me know. It has for me, most definitely. With that said, hey, y'all take it easy and have a good one.